Welcome to Wednesday. It is Lunch and Learn. It's Wednesday, October 9th. We are like halfway through just about October already. I'm
Oh,
like,
is it October already? That's what I
uh,
want to know. I want to know how it's October already.
I want to know that too. I also want to know that. How is everybody? Do I get to see anyone's beautiful faces today? It's Wednesday. It's Lunch and Learn. Hey, Daniel. Oh, hey, Mom and Pa.
How's it
Who else we
going?
got on here? Welcome to Lunch and Learn, Daniel. Let's see. Oh, I see some other faces. Hey, Maurice. Where's Erica? Danielle. Hey, James. Long time no talk. Awesome. Awesome. We're going to get started here in a couple minutes. We've got a guest speaker. Hey, Akeem. Hey, Danielle. How are you guys? Do we have anybody that wants to share a win, an accomplishment, a milestone, an event coming up? And then we're going to dive in because we all know SEO is going to drive us some donors, right, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan.
That's the plan.
Totally can do it.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to like put this topic on repeat today. I already know.
I'll bet.
Okay, the only announcement I have, and I will put it in the chat box here, is November 11th, 12th, and 13th on Zoom. We have a boot camp. It's at 6 p.m. Pacific, and I am going to pull up the link for you guys. And I'll put that in there. If any of you are available, please sign up. It's going to be awesome. It's a 3-day intensive boot camp. It's in the evening on Zoom. Once you register for this boot camp, you'll get all the information for the Zoom links and stuff, downloadables, like so much cool stuff. And then it'll also launch you into the next opportunity, which is going to be a 90-day challenge that puts you in the running for a $5,000 grant. So definitely check out the Wealth Power Plug Bootcamp, and then you'll learn about the challenge all from that. But we have that coming up. It's November 11th, 12th, and 13th. Okay, without further ado, I am so excited. Oh, Stephen, let me change your name because they're all going to think you're also Sharon.
Yeah, I am not you.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Akeem, I can see you perfect now. You got it looks like it's connecting now.
Can you, while you're, banging on the keys, could you give me the ability to
Oh,
share my
shoot,
screen?
my bad. Sorry.
I'm,
Okay. I am not
that
even
was
this
feedback, not
man.
judgment.
I'm not even going to do this man even the best judgment. See, you got me stuck on intro ever. But y'all are about to get just gem dropped after gem on how can SEO be applied to nonprofit organizations. Stephen's going to tell you what SEO is, search engine optimization, how that can help your nonprofit, how you guys are going to do this, what does it mean for the nonprofit, donors, awareness, all of that. This guy is literally the SEO guru. So, Stephen, give us before you dive in, like, please, just for like a good 30 seconds or a minute, brag on yourself and let us know everything that you are, and then dive into this SEO world for us.
Okay, because Zoom is being a bit obnoxious. Do you guys see my screen, which is a presentation that says
Yeah,
make some
it looks
noise? Do you see
beautiful.
that?
Yep.
Okay. For a moment, it told me that you were seeing my desktop, and I am super afraid of being judged for the number of icons on my desktop. So I'm glad that that's not the case. So, yeah, I can talk about myself for a minute or less. So my name is Stephen Duetzmann. I run SideQuest Solutions. That is the internet has decided that that is a full stack digital marketing agency. What that means is I do a little bit of everything. My specialty is in search engine optimization, which is essentially the task of helping people build up their websites to be more visible when people search for things on the internet. But I also deal with social media management, and I build websites etc. So I do a lot of stuff. But if I were to give myself a title, I would call myself a content strategist. That's the key thing that I do, which is I look at people's business, I look at their, their operations, and I help them figure out what kind of content they need to make. And believe it or not, the content you create is a big piece of this SEO process. A lot of people think it's all ones and zeros and really boring behind the scenes stuff, but really the words you write, the videos you make, the podcasts you create are just as important. And we'll talk about that later. So I do want to share a quick brag slash win because you were asking everybody else. Um, and I can finally talk about it as of today. And wait, I can't. It, hold on. This is really cool. So everybody, if you go to the grocery store today, and you happen to see this Time magazine about Minecraft, I'm actually in it. I wrote 2 articles in the special edition Time magazine. It has nothing to do with search engine optimization, but it's another thing I do. So you asked for quick wins. I figured I've been
That's an
holding that one
awesome
in.
I love
I've
that's
been
a good
holding that one
feat.
in. Yeah, I've
That's
been holding
cool.
that one in since July. So now I'm just telling every human being that I can. So if you happen to see that, you can be like, wait, that nerd that I saw on the webinar today, that
Like
was him.
our
So,
our our lunch and learn nerd today is famous.
I mean, I don't know about famous, but I'm in a special edition of Time magazine. So anyway, um, if I didn't just out myself as a bit of a nerd, well, now you know. So let's talk about search engine optimization. And as you can see, the presentation that I have, the title slide is about making some noise. And at the end of the day, that's what search engine optimization is. It's taking the digital presence that you have on the web and making it louder. And there's a bunch of different techniques that you can use. I'm going to help you identify some techniques that are accessible, that are simple to wrap your mind around, even if you hate computers. And and show you and talk about how you can kind of move on from that once you get used to it. So um, we already talked about who I am. But I paid for the headshot, so I may as well use it in the opening slide. So we'll skip to the next one. In the agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about how search engines work, because believe it or not, knowing how the search engine works is actually going to help you understand how your website will present on the internet. It's just like any sport, right? The best way to design your offense is know how the defense is going to work. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're going to talk about the current state of things, right? The amount of competition that is out there on the web, of which there's a lot. We'll talk about the challenges that we face as small business owners, as people running charities, and nonprofits. Like we all face very similar challenges. And then I'm going to talk about how to face those challenges. And I just to show you that I'm human, that arrow with the hint that was supposed to be animated, and I didn't do that. So the hint is search engine optimization. It's a great way to face those challenges. So let's take a little bit to talk about this. And there is a Q&A section at the end, but if I mean, there's a chat, and I'm sure that the good doctor will, if you have something you want to stop me, go ahead. I can do that. So here's how search engines work. And when I say search engines, plural, I mean that. Most of us, when we think of search engines, we think of Google, right? And that's because it's kind of ubiquitous, right? You don't search for things on the internet, you Google it, right? Kind of like you don't blow your nose with a tissue, you blow your nose with a Kleenex. One of those things. But there are, in fact, multiple search engines. Google is a search engine, Yahoo, Bing, DuckDuckGo, if you are so inclined. And all of them work relatively similarly. There's under the hood, there's very different stuff, right? They're different cars, but at the end of the day, turnkey engine go vroom. So this is how this works. All of these search engines work in a similar way. The first thing they do is explore. Using Google as an example, it has what it calls spiders that regularly scans the entire internet. So basically, Google just Googles all the time. What these spiders do is they run through every website and they follow every link available on those websites to see what content is out there. And then once everything has been kind of scanned, they index it. And what that is essentially is they figure out what content is related to what, they prioritize it. So when you're looking at a specific topic, it will kind of put them in an order to help determine, what are they going to show when different search terms get put into the search engine. And the last piece is they deliver. Um, when you go into Google or Yahoo or whatever, right, and you put a search term into that box and hit enter, what Google does is it consults that index and compares your search term to it, and it delivers the most relevant and authoritative results that are possible for the combination of that query, that words that you typed in, and the user. And the reason I bring the user into that is Google knows a lot about us. I'm sure you heard, and I'm sure many of you may have privacy concerns about what data Google collects, but Google uses it the in its purest purpose. Google uses that information. If I search for, say, the New York Jets, I don't know, I'm just picking them up. And and search for the New York Jets, it will give you different results because we have different stuff. Google knows very well that I'm a New England Patriots fan, so it's going to give me different stuff, slightly, right? The same way where if I Google, credit cards, Google is aware roughly, have I been looking for credit cards recently? Is this a new search? And so it'll prioritize things differently, and it does that with literally everything, right? So that's how search engines work. By nature of the fact that it indexes literally everything on there, what that does is it means there is a ton of noise on the internet. Picture, going into the internet and just, it's just static, right? And thinking about your sector, there's 1.8 million nonprofits in the United States, right? 91% of them have a website, which makes me really wonder how the 9% that don't operate, because you kind of need a website, but that's just my internet bias speaking. So that means doing some napkin math. That's a 1.638 million nonprofit websites competing for donor dollars. That's bananas, right? There's only so much money that can be donated. You guys know this struggle. You live this struggle. That's why you're coming to this thing. That's why Dr. Sharon had me come to this thing. Um, when I put it that way, it sounds kind of hopeless, right? Like, man, that's a lot. You're competing for a lot. Now, admit it, I know I'm drawing some rather bleak pictures here. You're not obviously competing with literally every one of those 1.6 million, but the illustration is still valid. So it's the bottom line is it's hard to get heard about the noise, and we also and that's true on commercial enterprises as well, right? There's a lot of challenges. Getting noticed is expensive. Using the internet and like building content on the internet, it's a lot for a lot of us. It's just not our thing, right? I talk to folks all the time where they're like, you know what, making blog posts and making videos, that's kid stuff. Well, it's not, but that's still an opinion that folks have, right? It's competitive, right? We just talked about competition, but there's lots of other folks creating content, competing for attention, not just dollars. People don't understand algorithms. Just hearing about algorithms brings people back to high school math class, and nobody wants to be there except for like those three people and those, whatever. Did I mention it's expensive? And it's a saturated market. It's time consuming. It's kid stuff. But one of the biggest things that I see and hear is that people think that getting heard above the noise on the internet is intimidating. A lot of folks just think about it. They feel like it's, they just put stuff on the internet, and the idea of improving it is it's too much. It's too heavy of a weight to bear. You've got other things to do. And while that is obviously true, I'm sure most of you have have bigger things to do than fiddle with a blog post. But it's possible that fiddling with that blog post could get it seen by just the right donor. It could give you exactly what you need. So there is an answer to all of these problems. And that is SEO. And you probably knew what I was going to say, right? Because that's the whole reason I'm here. So And the reason SEO is the answer, and I'll talk about some technical definitions of what it really is. The reason SEO is an answer is, yes, I am an SEO consultant and I do it for a living. But it is something that on a basic level, everyone who creates content on the internet, and by content, I mean even a landing page website is content. Every word is content. Um, Everyone can do it. There are some basic fundamentals that if you do it, it's like walking before you run. Yeah, you might need a consultant for some bigger operations. You may need somebody to get in and get behind the scenes, but for the basic stuff, you absolutely can do it. And I'm looking around at some of the faces and I'm seeing some of these names. I absolutely am confident that y'all can do it. And I know that because my mother does it, and she is in her 70s and is not the most tech savvy person in the world, but even she follows some of these principles because I taught her. Now, so let's talk about it. SEO stands for search engine optimization. Um, and I like to think of it as all of the actions you can take to make more noise and get noticed on search engines. Basically, I'm going to teach you to shout so that Google will bring you up and when people search. A couple of different ways to do that. You can do work both on your page, on your website, and you can do work off the page, which surprises some folks, but we'll talk about those tactics in a minute. First, on your page, um, optimizing your own website. I've got some 4 categories that you can do here that don't require a technical degree. The first one is optimizing your content. And again, when I say content, a lot of folks think blog posts, videos, things like that. Even if your web page, even if your website is one landing page, the equivalent of a digital resume for your nonprofit, that's content. Every sentence is important. Um, and honestly, the less you have, the more important it is to really optimize that content. And here's a couple of ways to do it. One, there are headings that you put on your website. If you take nothing else from today, I want you to learn to go when you're looking at your website, look at the headings that you select. Um, when you're in the back end of your website, you'll see options to make things like a paragraph font or H1 or H2 or H3. Um, those are headings. Those are really important because that's one of the key signals that Google takes to organize your website to figure out what you're all about. So the number one thing you can do is use descriptive headings. You don't have to get cute with this. You just have to say, I said this to a guy the other day, you're a pizza parlor from New Haven, Connecticut. You should say that you are a pizza parlor in New Haven, Connecticut. If you are a nonprofit that helps troubled youth in Detroit, you should say that. And the reason for that is outside of kind of the obvious is it that's what people are going to look for on the internet. They're going to look for, they're not going to Google the name of your organization often. They're going to look for the category of services that you provide, right? They're going to look for, and so that is where you are. That's where you want to make sure Google knows what you do. And the headings are the number one way to fix that. It's in fact, it's the first thing that I look at when I look at anybody's website. Second, is answer questions directly. And what that means is look at your content, look at your website, and make sure that everything that you write answers a question. It either needs to talk about you or address a question that you think your ideal donor or somebody that you want to reach would want, right? What do you do? Why do you do it? Where do you do it? Everything needs to answer those questions, and you should do it directly. I'm a dad. I like to make dad jokes. I make puns. I make stupid jokes. I don't do that in my headings. And the reason for that is Google doesn't understand good humor. So there's lots of folks that'll do that. You can do that in people do that in their business names. You can get cute there. It's fine. Don't do that in your headings. And wordplay is great, but you're going to want to be direct when you can. And the last piece about content optimization is be thorough. If there is a question that you think that you get asked regularly about what you do, and you find that you have to answer it, even if you don't normally refer people to your website, but people still ask you about it in person, maybe when you're at events, maybe where you're at mixers, talking to potential donors, etc. Put it on your website. Super important. And the reason for that is not necessarily because people may want to know that information, but because having that answer will help Google hone in on making sure that you're presented to the right and relevant folks. But also, having the answer to those questions will boost your authority. It'll make you more authoritative on, in your area, in your silo, right, in your market, and that's really important. Next, improving your site structure. Um, Everybody, like every page needs to have a purpose. So when you created your website, you probably picked a template because WordPress gave it to you, because Wix gave it to you, whatever. And there was probably a homepage and a contact me page and and a blog and a bunch of specialty pages. Look at all your pages and make sure they serve a purpose. Because if they don't, get rid of them. One thing that I found is a lot of folks, testimonials, that's a page that, um, you know, there's a lot, they end up being the least trafficked website pages on every website that I look at. And so what I found is rather than kind of taking testimonials and other, case studies and stuff like that, and cording them off into their own section, put them right on your homepage. Make it so somebody goes to mynonprofit.com, they see those case studies, they see those things. Obviously, make them look good if you can, but don't necessarily put them off on their own page. And the next one is making sure the navigation makes sense. When you have that menu at the top, you want the menu selections to make sense, right? If it's a blog, say it's a blog. Don't say it's our masterpieces, right? I've seen some weird stuff in these menus. It's a blog. It's a contact us page. It's a, references page, whatever you need, right? Make sure that it is, that it's clear. Um, Next, use strong keywords. Now that's as soon as I say keywords, I bet you at least 3 or 4 you cringed because you're like, oh goodness, he's talking about keywords in Google. It's not as crazy as you think. If you look up keyword research tool on Google, it will give you a bunch of free tools that you can use. And then what you do is you just look up your business, look up your industry, your area, and it'll give you some suggestions. If you don't want to go that far, just be direct with what you do. Google what you do and look at the words that come up when you search for that. The words that come up, that are relevant in your area, are going to be what's called semantically related. That's the SEO nerd term. They're just related terms, right? And those are the things you're going to want to use. You're never going to want to say, okay, so I run an animal hospital. So I need to use the word animal hospital in every sentence, in every heading, on every page. No, you don't want to do that. That's actually a bad idea. What you want to do is be deliberate with your use, make sure it appears in your headings, but you want to talk about things that are commonly used when talking about animal hospitals, right? What kind of care you give, why you provide that care, what kind of animals you take care of, etc. Again, I'm just throwing out weird examples, but kind of think about what you do and think about how that advice would relate. We can talk about it in the Q&A later. So that's really what I mean by keywords, right? Just be deliberate with what you're doing. There are tools and there are consultants like me that can do some really long tail. We can find some interesting words that you could compete for. But at the very least, if you're just deliberate with what you're doing, it will go. It will take you pretty far. And the last one is make good content. I know that's easy for me to say. I'm not making it for you. I mean, I could. We'll talk about that later. But but make good content. Be interesting. Write about the work you do. Right? You do great things. Everyone in here does great things. Doc wouldn't let you in here if you didn't. Right? I don't know. Somehow she let me in here, but I'm the exception. Right? So write about the work you do. Be excited because I'm sure that you're proud of the work you do. Write about it. That's a great thing for a blog, right? Talking about events that you hold, fundraising efforts, things like that. Provide resources. if you are the type of organization that helps people in, that helps people in need in a very specific situation, and there's a handout that you always give to people, or hey, every time you meet with a person that is in need of your services, you say, hey, here's a notebook, write these things down, do it for them, make it a blog. Then you can just give them the link or give them a QR code or something like that. Um, so provide resources. And lastly, document your operations and processes. This is something that a lot of folks kind of forget about. And this is kind of a marketing tool. The idea of like document versus create. If you don't know what to make, right? If you're not sure about what to do, what to create, what resources to make, just document what you're doing. And you don't necessarily need to be you don't need to be too prescriptive, right? Or too casual. You could just find a way where it's like, hey, this month, this is what we did. We're doing fundraising efforts. We're preparing for this event. We're, whatever, right? And just talk about what you're doing and what you are working towards. That will speak volumes to not only the people who find your website, but also to Google itself. Because again, the goal of the content that you make is not only to be interesting and useful to users, but also every word you put on your website tells Google more about what you do. So that's a lot of easy stuff. Easy. I'll put it in air quotes for us. Stuff that you can do to help fix and improve your website. Next, let's talk about some amplification you can do off the page. One thing that you can do, and the challenge that I'm going to give to everybody today, is to start trying to deliberately build backlinks to your website. Now, what the heck, Steve? What is a backlink? I'll tell you. A backlink is another website linking to your website. I guess now that I explain it, that probably wasn't as mysterious as I was making it out to be. But the idea is Google really loves authority. The more other websites that link to you, the better, right? So there are some ways to get quality backlinks. You could write guest posts on other websites. You could collaborate with other nonprofits. There's all sorts of things that you can do in there. Basically, if you can go to another website and can convince them to link to you by being of value to them, big help. Um, the biggest thing is appear on podcasts and YouTube. At least a half dozen of you, I can't see everybody in the chat, have webcams. So if you know somebody that has a Zoom show that talks about some of the stuff you do, ask to be on the show. If they're, maybe they post their videos on YouTube. YouTube is the second biggest search engine on earth. Technically first, if you consider that Google technically owns them, but I'm not going to be like that. YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world, and links to your website from Google are absolutely authority building. And podcasts too. So if you have a microphone, talk to somebody that has a podcast. There are plenty of them out there. And lastly, a lot of us appear in, we get quoted in news articles. We'll get quoted by reporters. We'll appear, we'll send out our press releases and send them to reporters. If a reporter in print, if a reporter includes a quote from you, track them, track them down is not the right word, but make sure you communicate with them and make sure that they put a link to your website in their article. I'm using myself as an example. One of the things I do outside of SEO is I run a family-focused video game blog. I did a piece for a New York news station about Roblox a bunch of years ago, and they included a quote from me in their print article. And it took me 3 or 4 emails to get them to actually link to my homepage from their blog on, randomnewyorkstation.com. That has been one of the most valuable links on my site. And it was from a news post that was written 5 years ago. So it's worth sending those few emails if you do that. The next one, and this is going to sound somewhat counterintuitive, but leverage social media. social media meant Google is aware, and so are other not social networks, other search engines are aware of what happens on social. So being mentioned, even if they don't explicitly link to you, is good. So leverage social media. Get other organizations to link out to your page, to your URL, to to your profiles, or even just mentioning you positive is a good thing. And the other piece is if they are linking to your website, people who click to your website from social media are interested people who are more likely to click around at other things on your website rather than get there and bounce. And people clicking around your site because they're interested in it is a really good sign to Google. They know that what you're doing is delivering what people want. So, so those are some off-page strategies. I have a free resource for everybody that I wanted to talk about because I've just yammered for what, 15 minutes about all these tactics. Grab your phone if you can, and we'll and follow this link. I have it's a free comprehensive SEO checklist for your site. There's 2 pages. Level 1 is all very basic stuff that everybody can do. Level 2 is the more advanced stuff. That would be, maybe you need to Google it, maybe throw it into Chat GPT and ask what's this guy talking about, or you can send me an email and we can talk about it later. But go ahead and scan this QR code, join my mailing list. I'll send you I'll send you the comprehensive SEO checklist. There's a lot of stuff on there. There's more than what I talked about. And following those steps will absolutely help you grow your website's traffic, your reach, and more traffic, more reach, more donors. That's the math. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's inevitable, right? You all do good work. You put interested in people in front of it, they're going to want to give you money. Q&A time. I don't know if there are any questions, Doc.
Not really any specific questions. But I want if you can explain again, because this always confuses folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so explain how it works when you want your link to be in other people's stuff to link back to you so that it helps with the SEO. So like you wouldn't write a blog yourself and link it to your website, right? You would need someone you could write a blog
Both.
for someone else's website and it linked to you, right?
Yes, sure. Both is good. When you write stuff on your own site, if you have a blog, writing blog posts on your own site, you absolutely should try to link to other parts of your website. So to answer that part, you always want to do that. I aim whenever I do content upgrades for folks, I try to do like 5 internal links on every page. With that said, when I talk about guest posting, I would mean that you, Dr. Sharon, on the nonprofit The Plug, would then come to me at SideQuest Solutions and say, I want to write an article. I would like to write an article about, I don't know, something, pick a topic.
Mm.
We could figure it out. You would write it. I would publish it on my blog and put the link to your URL on my website. And in some cases, maybe I would do the same for her and we do like a little blog exchange. Some people will do that. And that's certainly fair. Google is not opposed to those things. What it doesn't like is if you go out to one of those content farms and ask somebody to chat GPT 150 articles and insert them all over the internet. You don't want that. You want authentic, real content from you and your expertise put in, at least somewhat related blogs, right? I think if I were to write about SEO on ESPN.com, that would probably not be super valuable for, I mean, it'd be cool, but it wouldn't be super relevant. Does that answer the question, you think? And
I
it
think
was
so. I think so. I think that does answer. Let me see if there was anything else in there.
great.
Yes, that
I think
did.
they said
Perfect. Okay.
great.
That was always one that I get stuck on too. What do you feel like for nonprofits specifically, because we're not necessarily selling products and things
Sure.
like that. We're driving traffic because we want the awareness, we want the donors. Do you have a recommendation, like one gem you would drop with us today on, um, we have a nonprofit. What's the first thing we should do for our website or to approach someone else to, get more awareness to our website? What's the number one thing that you think would be if we had to, strategically prioritize stuff?
Sure. If you had one thing to do, I would look at your homepage, the your website with nothing at the end of it. Look at it from top to bottom, and make sure that from just that one page, I know who you are, what your service area is, if that's relevant, right? Some of us are nationwide. So who you are, where you do work, what you do, who benefits from it, your mission. And I would make sure all of those questions are answered clearly on that front page without having to navigate somewhere else. And you know, you so that's that if you do nothing else, I would do that. And
Okay.
it's very, it that might be kind of intimidating depending on what you've done. At the absolute worst, most website templates have the ability, you'll have the section at the top that'll be, the big flashy design thing, probably a really cool picture, right? Um, and then towards the bottom, you'll that most templates have an option to do like a text block with a heading. If
Mhm.
Even if you don't have the wherewithal to do any fancy design work, just do a text block with a heading where the heading is who are we? Answer it. Where do we, and just treat it like an FAQ. Because that alone will make it very, first of all, it's a good user experience, right? People that you want everybody that lands on your page to know what you're doing and why. But the other piece is it'll tell Google. So that way, if somebody's Googling for what you do, they're more likely to show it to you. So that's the one thing I would do.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I love that. Any nonprofit founders, now's your chance. We got the SEO guru on here. Anybody have a website they've got a question on, anything they want to understand better to get that SEO improved on their website? Don't be shy.
So I I'll move on to the next slide while they
Okay,
ponder it. So
sure.
if after all this, I mean, I'm I've been talking for the last half hour or so, given a lot of information. I shared my free resource. I do have a um we'll be talking about that in a moment. Because I can. I mean, what I did, let's see, you sell art for a nonprofit from your website. Traffic was high 3 years ago, not so much now. I mean, what I would do is, oh, that's actually really cool. Okay, so the first thing I would do, is
Just
I would
her
go.
art. She has sold her art and made $30,000 for nonprofits in less than a year.
I mean, that's great. I mean,
Wow.
so if traffic has dropped, my guess is, the first thing that I would guess without even clicking on the link, is that, there could be a like a freshness issue, right? If content isn't updated at least somewhat frequently, it can fall behind. There may be other competitors in the space who do something similar, um who have there may be some competitors who are just doing something newer, and newer isn't necessarily better, but Google does like that. Um, and so, um, just to pivot to my next thing, because Dr. Sharon gave me she told me the mission here, right? She told me what was happening, gave me told me what all of you were here for. And so I put together something that I think is a kind of an exclusive offer, something that I don't offer it to really anybody, and I'm just offering it here. Um, is a it's what I'm calling like a visibility review, where you can grab me. I can do an analysis of your website, your social media accounts, and come back with some tailor-made strategies for you. And I'm normally I would, my services are a little bit more, but for this group, I wanted to, um, I wanted to do something a little bit special because I think that I believe in the mission here. So for my services right here, right now, for $100 is my offer. So my email is at the end. You're certainly welcome to email me. Um, so I can give some tailor-made suggestions and I can click links and do stuff like that through those reviews. But for now, that's usually what happens. If you see a if you're getting tons of traffic and it was 2, 3 years ago, and over time you see a sharp decline, I gotta move up so my webcam gets me. The biggest cause for that is that Google just thinks the content is old. Like if it hasn't been heavily updated, they might think that you're not as active anymore. Um, I'm guessing since you're selling art, you probably also have images for your art
Mhm.
on there. I would make sure when you post images that you also go in, especially if you're using WordPress, um, they'll give you the option to like add some like alt text and descriptive text for all those images. I would make sure to fill those out completely with descriptions because that actually is another signal so that Google has information about what you're doing. Um, Other than that, it's tough to say exactly what happened. It could also be a technical issue too. We'd have to see. But normally, if you're getting really good traffic for a while and then it dips, it's probably not a relevance issue. It's probably that you just need to update the site a little bit. And it could just be a make some new stuff. And it could also just be hit refresh and just say it was just published today and just change a little bit. It might not need to be something really crazy. You don't have to redo the whole site. It could just be kind of hit publish again. That sounds wild, but I've seen that make a difference. So, I don't know if there are any other questions. I saw Peg nodding in one of the windows, and I can't see